I've talked about it a couple of times. I'll set you up by saying two things. It's more about Auburn than it is Alabama, that win, because Auburn was dominant in that game. And from a national perspective, I keep hearing people say that's the best win in college basketball this year, what Auburn did on Saturday to Alabama, 94 to 85. Take it away. What's your reaction?
I mean, look, it was dominant. I mean, when you go 40 minutes on the road in No.2's building, and just to put it in perspective, Nate Oates has coached 87 games there, and he's never had a team that didn't lead at any minute. Boy, that was a statement. Look, and I know Alabama came back and they tied it, and there was a little excitement and, giving fans a little bit of what they paid for. But, I mean, wire to wire to never trail. And, for a minute, it seemed like they were at arm's length the entire time until they tied it up. For a minute, though, it seemed like it was going to go the other way, and Auburn was going to win this game like 12 to 14 points.
I don't know how it can't be considered the best win in basketball this year. I don't know even what is second.
Yeah,
I mean, second might be Auburn's Duke's win at home versus Auburn. Honestly,
that would be where I would go. But for Auburn, I had said all year long I thought their comeback win over Iowa State in the Maui Classic was a dang good win until Iowa State sort of fell off a little bit. Auburn's got a bunch of them. Florida's win at Auburn will rank high up there now.
Sure, there's no doubt.
But
I guess that'd have to be number 2 if you're going to say Alabama's win at Auburn is number 1. Florida's a 1 seed right now, and they won at Auburn. That's probably the second best.
It would be,
I think Florida's win at Auburn, and then probably Duke's win over Auburn.
That's
so
right.
Auburn's involved in all the big wins right now.
Yeah.
And that's what it is when you're the dominant team. But it's hard, and it sounded stupid when I said this post-game, and I said it again yesterday a couple of times, but Alabama scored 85 points. Mm-hmm. They scored 52 in the second half. But my biggest takeaway from this game was still Auburn's defense.
No, especially the first half.
Alabama had 32 in the first half, I think it was. 33 in the first half. And there was nothing easy in that. It never felt like anything was easy all day long. If you're for an Alabama person, it was harder to get into the arena. It was harder to go to the bathroom. It was harder to go to the concession stand because it was jam-packed in that place. And it was harder for the basketball team to move around the court, to even shoot threes. Nothing easy.
You'll talk about Todd Pettiford being the hero in this game. You'll talk about Janai Broome playing through a re-aggravation of his ankle injury, being a hero in this game. The true hero in this game was Denver Jones and his defense on Mark Sears. That was spectacular.
Yeah, Sears.
I mean, he locked Sears down.
He did. I mean, Sears, what did he finish? 4 of 17?
Yeah. I mean, Sears got points. He got, 18, I believe?
Yeah.
But it was not the 18 points that Mark Sears needed to get for Alabama, if that makes any sense. Denver Jones, on Alabama's entire backcourt, whoever he was on, completely shut them down. His defense was spectacular. And to me, if you have to, pick one thing that won Auburn that game, that's got to be it. When Alabama's guards can't get going, that offense just gets bogged down. We've seen it against Ole Miss, and we saw it. I say bogged down. They still scored in the 80s, but
that's what made it so weird to say that.
I know, but
you're exactly
they were
right.
bogged down.
You're exactly right.
But I think going into the game, if you would have said, "Hey, Bruce, you guys are going to hold Alabama to 85 in Coleman," I think he'd have been like, "I'll take that."
Yeah, because Auburn is the team that can beat you however you play. They can beat Tennessee 53-51, and they can beat Alabama 94-85. Because Auburn, look at what they shot more. They shot, well, I don't know if they ended up shooting more threes than Alabama, but they did for the first half for sure. They were putting up more threes than Alabama, and that's Alabama's style. They made a lot more than Alabama made. They can beat you at your game, and they've done it to Tennessee. They've done it to so many teams. They did it to Alabama over the weekend. Let's hear from some postgame here. Let's go first. We'll cut one. Bruce Pearl, postgame after the Auburn win over Alabama, 94-85. I'll say this. Atmosphere was unbelievable.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that before we get too deep in the X's and O's. On TV, it came across that way, and everybody I've talked to said, Alabama and Auburn fans were like, well, first of all, Bruce Pearl says as loud as he's ever heard Coleman, and he said even go back to my Tennessee days. Yeah. He said that on ESPN.
Taylor said it was a little off, though.
A little off?
Yeah, she said that Alabama, when in pivotal moments, like Alabama fans were obviously very vocal when they would make big shots, and in that comeback a little bit to tie it up. But she said there were other times it just seemed like it was a little off.
Well, when you get down 14.
A totally different experience than that. I mean, when you're down 9-0 to start with, Auburn took the crowd out of it. but the atmosphere was unbelievable. The buzz before the game, the from the national anthem until Auburn scored 9 points and it's 9-0. Now you sit back down when you're down 9-0. You sit your butt down. You don't cheer at that point.
Yeah, I will tell you from
9-0.
It almost played out not like the Super Bowl, but a little bit from my perspective on the couch. I had Auburn, so I liked the outcome, but sitting on the couch, it was never a great game.
Yeah, they would get back Brownie. Yeah. They'd cut it to within one possession.
Yep.
And then Auburn would go on a run.
Almost always like a 7-0, 9-0 run.
Yeah.
And
it would get back to 9 or 10 or 11.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would wonder if this Auburn team is great, but if you wonder, that's what great teams do. Yeah. When you get challenged, especially on the road, you don't just match buckets. You're able to take the lead back and then extend it. Yeah. And that's what Auburn has done very, very well. They did that at Ole Miss, too. I mean, that's probably Auburn's two toughest road games so far, other than Duke, two toughest conference road games, at Ole Miss and at Alabama. And they did the same exact thing against Ole Miss. Ole Miss kept coming back and either tying that game or making it a one-possession game, and Auburn would go on a 7-0, 9-0 run and extend the lead. And that's what they did all day Saturday.
Yeah.
And did it. I mean, you got to say this, Lance, did it Saturday. Cardwell was in foul trouble the whole game, ends up fouling out. Chad Baker-Mazara was on and off the bench. He's banged up. He had the issue with Chris Youngblood.
Had the issue with a woman in the first row.
With people in the front row. I mean, so he was on and off. Janai Broome is sitting on the bench with his shoe off. Like, I didn't think he was going to come back in. You go to the bench, have to take your shoe off, and he's already limping, asking out of the game. I was like, you may not see Janai Broome again. I mean, that was far from a full-strength Auburn team that did that.
Well, I thought Janai was going to go 30 and 20 in the first 2 or 3 minutes.
When he starts training threes.
Yeah, I mean, he was even backing Mo Diabate down when they tried him on him. It was an impressive win. But as for the atmosphere, great atmosphere, and then you'd get back to within one possession, and the place would be juiced, and then they'd go on a 7-0 run, and you'd sit down again. You'd lean back in your chair. And you'd be like, all right, I'm now worried, if you're an Alabama fan, about this being a blowout. And then they'd fight back and get to one possession, and they'd get back into it, and the roof would be ready to come off. And then it would fall back and down 9 again.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like every time you looked up, you were down 9.
Have you, a couple of things. So you've been to a lot of games at Coleman over the years, but Taylor said it seemed like that was by far the most people she's ever seen in that building.
Yeah.
Like,
there's been more because they reduced the capacity when they put those suites in at that one end.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the way it would look with amount of seats to spectators.
Easily the most, like the students, I believe, get 2,300 seats. And I sat and watched people that had roles in the game bring in +2 in the student section. Like I'd see a person walk in and like, oh, they were with me, and they'd walk those 2 students up. The students were in the aisles, so there's probably 2,500, 2,600 students, and there were a lot more people in there than there were seats.
But occasionally
it was. If you're asking me, was it as full as I've ever seen Coleman Coliseum in this reconfiguration, or maybe all time? Yeah, absolutely.
Occasionally, even in a big game, no matter where the venue. In a big game, they'll scan the crowd, and you'll see a couple of empty seats, and you're like, oh, somebody didn't get to make it or couldn't lay their tickets. I didn't see any of that. They'd scan the crowd. There was not an open seat.
I didn't see a ton of Auburn fans. And back to the thing we talked about a couple of weeks ago, did Alabama fans not sell their tickets?
No, dude. I was the same way because some Auburn fans wore orange, and it jumped out. But if you're in blue and you're up high at Coleman Coliseum, what happens?
So dark.
You're in the dark.
You can't see them. So I said the same thing during the national anthem. I was like, dang, Alabama fans did good keeping the Auburn fans out of here. There's a few here, there's a few there.
And it's hard in Coleman, it being at home, because you only see so much. Yeah. And you're obviously going to see a lot of Auburn fans behind the Auburn bench, but it just didn't look like a lot from my perspective.
Yeah, most of them I do believe were on the camera side in the high, but when Auburn would go on a run, they were loud. You'd hear them in there. And then late in the game, last couple of minutes, when Alabama fans were filing out, they were able to move closer down. And you probably saw, I'd put an estimate at about 1,500 to 2,000 Auburn fans, which is a lot.
That's about what we said, was 1,500 is what we thought.
But it didn't look like that at the start of the game. I was like, man, there were 4, like row 4 right behind. I was like, how'd they get there? I mean, padded, cup holders. There's a family of 4 there. I was like,
money. What was
those people aren't going to be on a Greg Byrne watch list.
I mean, did you guys hear what the ticket ended up going for?
I think I saw pregame your good seats were like 12 to 1,300.
Reese Davis said on game day, get in. Worst seat in the house was 500.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that changed as you got closer to the tip.
I think I saw Big House, Michael Casagrande, track down an Auburn fan up in the upper reaches, like worst seat in the house, it looked like, upper corner baseline.
ZZ.
Yeah, whatever that is, and said that guy told him he bought it for $331 on the secondary market. Now, I don't know if he bought that to day of the game or 2 weeks ago. You don't know. But $331 for that seat, it was a bad seat. I'll go ahead and tell you.
I would just tell you that I go to a lot of sporting events. And during the national anthem, which was, again, young lady, I didn't remember her name. It was an unbelievable rendition of the national anthem.
Was it the same girl that sang it at the Boutwell thing? She was spectacular.
I don't know if it was.
Young girl. You remember? And her uncle was a huge fan of the show?
This girl looked to be a college student.
Okay.
She didn't sing Team USA, Team Canada, did she, before that?
But it was an unbelievable rendition. Unbelievable. And the place was juiced after that. And they were screaming during her national anthem because she was so good at it.
Yeah.
And the Rockets, and she'd hit a note and the crowd.
Well, I love that, man. When they're so good, it makes you cheer during the anthem.
They were cheering during the whole thing. And it was as, I mean, I can compare it to anything I've ever been to leading up to the tip. It was unbelievably juiced. And then Auburn several times took the air out and won the game 94 to 85.
Really now you had the Chad Baker-Mazara on the baseline issue, but that's fans and Chad Baker-Mazara.
We never got a good angle on that. I was telling Taylor, did the ball on the block hit the lady?
Oh, because that was on the next. That was right after. Yeah. My wife said it did, and I rewind. My wife watched the whole game. I don't know why. It's the first basketball game she's watched all year.
But on the two replays, it didn't show where the ball actually went.
But that was Chad Baker-Mazara on the block too.
That's what I'm saying.
The hustle, vicious block,
and it went right back at the area where he had just had the interaction.
And that's And Taylor was like, it was like the lady was upset. She wanted him teed up, like he purposely did that. That would be incredible if you can go down, block the shot, aim it at the individual in the crowd that you want. And
that's athleticism. But really, the only, Diabate had a bloody lip, but that when they show the replay, that was just hard basketball. I don't think there was anything intentional there.
I think at one time, I can't forget one Auburn player was holding it. Maybe it was Janai. Somebody was holding their face at one point.
Yeah.
You catch an elbow every now and then.
I mean, that's
now,
basketball.
Chad Baker-Mazara had a flagrant foul.
That's what I was going to say. Okay. That was the one thing when people were talking about technicals, over-under on number of technicals. I think you said you wholly expected that there would be a technical to settle things down, a double tech in that game. The only thing that got remotely close was the thing with Youngblood and Chad Baker-Mazara.
And that was like an open hand, weak slap kind of.
And Youngblood just immediately gets up and starts asking for the replay. I mean, he wasn't looking, nor was Baker-Mazara. I mean, Youngblood had ridden him out of bounds. Chad Baker-Mazara kind of open hand hits him in the face, and Youngblood's immediately, he's just wanting the free throws.
So you didn't see that as a swing?
It was close. When I saw it on one angle, I was like, oh, that's flagrant. Yeah. And then on the other, I was like, man, it was so weak. I know he intentionally did it.
No, he 100% intentionally did it.
But I just don't know if it rose up to a flagrant.
Yeah, I think the refs
has to
got
be
it right.
not a basketball thing for it to rise up to a flagrant.
But it was
a slap is not a basketball.
Very embarrassing slap.
Yeah. No,
it's like I almost don't call it because I'm like, dude, that was weak.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was fine with the foul. It actually was the turning point of not a turning point really, but it's what sealed Alabama's fate.
Alabama missed an opportunity there.
If you're Youngblood, you get 2 free throws and Alabama gets the ball, and Alabama got 1 point out of that. It's almost impossible to only get 1 point out of that situation where you get a free throw or 2 free throws and the ball to set up your offense, go full court and set up your offense, just normal possession, and you got 1 point out of it.
I assume there's not a rule in the SEC like there is in the NBA. I believe there's an NBA rule that if you get so many flagrant fouls, you get a 1-game suspension, right? Didn't we have that with Draymond at some point?
Oh, yeah. He got suspended Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, that's 2 at games I've been at for Chad Baker.
I think it's 17 is the number, I think.
Yeah.
In the NBA?
That's a huge number in the NBA.
It is.
Hey, Draymond got there.
Yeah. I assume there's not a rule because you just don't see many flagrant fouls in college basketball. I don't think Chad Baker-Mazara is on his way to missing a game for accumulating too many flagrant fouls, but that's at least 2 I've seen in person.
Yeah, I don't know what the
one
number
at the
would be.
Oklahoma
Yeah.
game when the Fears kid was trying to get punched the whole game, running his mouth, and then Youngblood and Chad Baker in this one. Give me cut 4. Brown, pull up the box score, if you will.
You got it right here, my friend.
Give me the Alabama total number of assists in this game.
Okay.
This was a mind-boggling number. At the half, I think Alabama had 4 assists.
I think you're right about that.
In the game. 4 assists in the half. What did they end up with?
That'd be 8.
8
Auburn
assists.
had 13. They had 8. Yeah.
8 assists is all Alabama had. How quickly can you pull up the Texas game the week before?
Very.
Earlier in the week. Because Texas, that game, Alabama made that extra pass. And I'm not making a comparison here because Texas plays Ole defense and Auburn may be the best defensive team in the country. But Alabama made 1 extra pass, 2 extra passes, and had open looks all
Boy,
day
that
long.
is something that really jumps out. I mean, watching Texas, a team like Texas and a team like Auburn within days.
Yeah, 17 is what Bama had against. So they had
17
11 more,
assists?
17 assists, had 9 more assists.
Yeah. You know who noticed that? Nate Oates after the game. That's the other side of this was Alabama's defense. How many passes Auburn made to set up Chaney Johnson or Pettiford or Denver Jones or somebody to have maybe you had a late Alabama guy coming out to try to disrupt it, but as you're getting into your shooting motion, they were open threes, ball movement so much better for Auburn.
And you were at the game, so you didn't hear. And Lance, I don't know how many times Billis must have said this, and it was such a good game plan by Auburn that worked, is that midcourt screen right there at the top of the key. Alabama just couldn't deal with that. And Billis kept pointing it out. He's like, Auburn is feasting off this top of the key screen, basically.
I did think, and Nate was just talking about tough threes that they make, the Pettiford and transition. I think it was after the Youngblood 3, was it? Youngblood?
No. It's at that point, I think it was 65-65. That was the first tie. They put the bucket. I think it was a 2-pointer from Grant Nelson.
Okay.
And 65-65, and then you're talking about Pettiford down there.
Oh, yeah.
Just stops and pops.
Stops and pops, and then right after that, off the top of the glass and the foul.
Yeah.
I mean, look, his 11 second-half points were crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I thought because I gotta see what the box score tells me.
To your point on the 3-pointer, that's NBA like he's going full speed on the dribble, and to stop into your shooting motion like that.
Difficulty, that's probably a shot that you might hit 20% of the time, maybe.
Because it's full run dribble, and for him to stop, and while stopping, it's going into the shooting motion, and the net doesn't move on it. It's just unbelievable.
Like, I really thought maybe Broom was the best offensive player for Auburn. Most energetic offensive player were the 2 freshmen. Philon for Alabama, to me, probably played his best in respect to what everyone else on the roster was doing that day.
Yeah,
Philon played his best. I mean, he had 10 points.
Yeah, he did. He was not creating a 3-point shot for himself.
Nobody was.
No, but that's
but I was just
LT
gonna
watches
say,
more NBA than you and I do. The difference between NBA guards or players in general and college players, the guys that can play at the NBA, no matter the defense, they create their own shot.
Yeah, they get it off every time.
I'm just saying, with respect to what they normally do in a game of that magnitude, I thought, with respect to what they normally do, Philon, I thought the 2 freshmen might have been the 2 best players out there.
Yeah. I thought Grant Nelson had opportunities.
They couldn't finish
needed
at the rim.
a little bit more from him.
Yeah, Alabama struggled at the rim.
And I'll say, though, man, if you would have said Alabama only had 7 turnovers, you're like, oh, damn, they won this game. But then on the flip side, if you're like, well, they were 5 of 26 behind the arc.
But Nate has preached no turnovers so much. I thought they were hesitant on their ball movement.
Maybe so, because, look, that is part of the DNA of this team. We've said it.
That's right.
Like, you're just not going to clean those up, and they cleaned it up, but maybe there was some hesitation, and the ball movement wasn't nearly as good.
Because we'll use a football comparison here. Do you want a quarterback that thinks an extra second to not put a ball in harm's way? Sometimes you just gotta let it rip. Sometimes
that was Mahomes last Sunday, man.
Yeah. Sometimes you're going to get an interception. Sometimes you got to feel it. You got to let it rip on time.
Well, but even turnovers aside, Auburn didn't let them run, and that's so much of Alabama is missed shot, rebound, outlet pass. It's in the offensive front court before you can even blink.
I leaned Auburn was the best team of college basketball going into the game. I don't think there's any doubt now.
It will be, when we get to everybody filling out their bracket. It'll be. Auburn will be the team to beat. They will be the team to beat.
I don't know if it'll be as prevalent as UConn after winning national championship in 23 with, 40% of the brackets having UConn. Right. But there's going to be a good amount. I know we had the bracket preview show.
Yeah, it was 1-2 in that, by the way, too.
I don't think Auburn's going anywhere. Like, would that not blow you away if they're not on the one line?
We'll get to that later in the show. But it absolutely was. I mean, it's Auburn and everyone else, and the selection committee said that. And then Lenardi and others are backing it up.
I do wonder with Broome, he was coming into that game not playing 100%. Charles Barkley said on our show. I think every Auburn fan in the MyBookie.ag chat has said it.
You can just tell.
You can tell he's not 100%, but he's playing through it. But then he re-injured it during the game. And you wonder, where is he right now? Would 2 games of rest fix it? Is this just something he's dealing with the rest of the year? I don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that, probably.
Well, if you're going to do it, these next 2 games are where you would do it.
Which is kind of why I brought that up. You wonder if at some point, do you sit him right now? You've got...
But I'll tell you, he's still playing for National Player of the Year for whatever that means.
I know.
And to me, that's big.
Well, let me. I know what you were both saying. Let me ask you a question. Do you hang a banner for National Player of the Year or National Championship?
No, but I brought this up on the Basketball Show podcast that's out now, the new one we recorded yesterday. If they win the SEC tournament and the National Championship, maximum number of games he has left in an Auburn basketball uniform is 15.
Okay.
So you're going to tell Janai Broome he's going to sit 2 weeks and he only has 11 left?
Yeah.
And
if I think he needs that to get healthy,
I do think there's probably a conversation there, depending on the depth of the injury right now.
But Bruce has said a couple of times that Janai wants to keep playing. He never brings up NBA stock.
But that was before the re-aggravation. If it was a re-aggravation, I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But if it is re-aggravated and you have the conversation, hey, maybe we rushed you or you rushed back a little too quickly.
That was one of the questions we had in the mailbag. Should you sit him for 2 weeks if you're guaranteed to get him 100% for the postseason? I don't know if you're guaranteed to get him 100%.
Well, that would be my question.
They keep saying that you can't re-injure it, and I assume rest can't help, or maybe they would have set him already.
And that's all I'm saying is if the doctors tell Bruce, look, rest is not doing any good, then you play him. And I know Bruce Pearl is a Hall of Fame coach. He's going to make the best decision for Janai Broome and the team there. It'd be silly on Bruce's part to continue to play him just for National Player of the Year honors and risk losing him or having him diminished in the postseason. It just got scary a little bit there when he's having to ask out of the game. You don't see that out of Janai Broome.
And if you do have a professional,
and then takes his shoe off,
multiple opinions that are like, hey, I really think he's going to be close to 100% if he's given X amount of time off. I do think you take a look at it. I don't think he will, though. And those 2 games we're talking about are home games against Arkansas and Georgia, where they're going to be healthy double-digit favorites.
And you don't have an insurmountable SEC lead, but boy, it's going to be hard for them not to win the SEC now.
Yeah. And I think it would be hard for them to lose those games without Janai Broome.
I know. You're a lock 1 seed. I mean, everything is still on the table, even if you stumbled in one of those 2 games.
No, not even one of those 2, Brandy. I really believe they could lose 6 games and still be on the one line.
Well, it's the number before. It's grown now.
I think they could lose every single SEC game
remaining
the rest of the way and still be that 4th 1 seed. I don't think they can fall off the one line because there's a gap between them and everyone else.
I'm going to disagree with that.
That sounds a little.
That's going to put them at 9 losses.
Well, guess what? It's not going to happen. So
we ain't going to have to worry about it.
You can't prove me wrong because it ain't going to happen. I joked with little T about this. I said, other than go back and watch the toss to start the game.
Okay.
It is the worst toss. Vladimir, whatever his name is, the official. Needs to work on his toss. He basically throws it to Dylan Cardwell. He does this.
Did you see?
He goes up like
and
this.
It's really not that difficult just to throw it straight up.
But he's doing it with both hands, and he apparently is right-handed because it goes right to Dylan Cardwell. But Alabama had 39 minutes and 59 seconds to overcome the illegal toss.
You, really. You were not watching on TV. Billis destroyed Pat Adams when he's on the mic and he's like, "Are they in the bonus?" He's like, "Yes, they're in the bonus. They've been in the bonus for 5 minutes."
Yeah, Billis.
He's like, "How do you not know that?"
No Fs. And he did. I mean, we do have way too many monitor calls with officiating coming over. It just kills the flow of the game.
I could not believe those 3 officials were assigned to that game. The Lindsey guy is good. Pat Adams
he was lost. He was lost on Saturday.
Does not rise up to the level of a 1-2 matchup.
Yeah, neither team was happy to see him.
And then I was told at game day when Little T sent out the list of the officials, I was told by somebody that the third guy,
Vladimir,
does not grade out very high compared to the elite of the guys who officiate SEC basketball.
Surprising.
And how they got that game.
Yeah.
Like I don't know any of their names, but I could picture the three in my head I thought would have been the officiating crew for that game.
and it was none of the three that you saw.
The Lindsey guy.
The Lindsey guy?
The one
Okay.
guy was. And then one of the guys that should have been there was the guy that came over to us and said, "Hey, no, we're not keeping up with personal fouls." And LT said, "What did you say?"
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that's
That'll
gonna
be fun. And he said, "For who?"
Yeah. No, that was me. My sarcasm, by the way, knowing that we were going to be up there all damn night. And how long did that game last?
And we were.
But his response was, and he should have been at that game too. He's one of the better officials. And then that old guy.
Well, you know what they didn't have to do that night was call fouls.
Yeah, they did.
Because apparently it didn't matter to anyone.
I can't, but that seems forever ago, and we're still in the middle of basketball season. 3 weeks away from the
Still 6 games left.
Did you
the
guys
conference
realize
tournaments.
these teams would be this good this year, though?
I did not.
No, I was writing down. I mean, Alabama coming off of a loss. They're 21-4 and 10-2 in the best conference of all time.
It's one of the best seasons in Alabama basketball history right now.
And Auburn's 23-2.
I know.
I mean, if they're in the West Coast Conference with the Gonzaga and nobody else, 23-2 is impressive as hell. And they played the toughest schedule in the country. They have 14 quad one wins, and they're 23-2.
It's crazy.
It's insanity.